Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. The name of today's podcast is Maybe Things Can Get Better. And the reason I bring this up today is when I woke up this morning, instead of meditating, I read my Twitter feed, and each tweet was more negative than the next. First, I read that 1 million people in the United States have died of COVID. And I know a lot of people around the world listen to this podcast. And I want to acknowledge that millions of people have died everywhere from this terrible virus. And then I read about a shortage of baby formula. And then I read about a few mass shootings. And I saw that people were saying that this country's terrible and things could never get better. And everything's going to keep getting worse. And then I just caught myself and I just stopped reading. And became very aware that there's a difference between what we observe and what we evaluate. Now, yes, there are factual things that happen every day. If someone's telling you the amount of COVID deaths, if someone's telling you the shortage of baby formula, if someone's telling you about gun laws, yes, those are facts. But what we often do is we take those facts and we project them into the future. And that's what I call we evaluate them. But what happens is that often, because of our fear, because of our worry, because the unknown doesn't always have clear answers, we take the most negative approach to what's going to happen next. And then we live in stress and fear and deep worry, and it clutters our mind. And then we're not even present enough to make the changes or the solutions that we want to see. And don't get me wrong, sometimes we need to evaluate a situation. People hire me all the time to come into their businesses, look at facts, and tell them where I think it's going, and then provide them with solutions. But often the things that happen to us every day, we don't really know what they mean. And I know I talk about this a lot, but when you don't get the job, that's a fact. But what we do is we evaluate it. Life's bad. Things are never going to get better. And we don't get the pay raise when we see something in the news that we don't like, or something happens that's unexpected. It's really important to separate what's actually happening in the moment and what we are projecting into the future. And yes, we need to plan, and yes, we need to solution, but we have to be careful, because when the fear and negativity get involved, we're shutting down. We're living in the future, which is the most anxiety-ridden thing to do. And the reason why living in the future creates so much anxiety is because you're not there. So you don't have the tools, you don't have the presence, you can't even solve it. So we have to be really careful to stay in this moment and stay with exactly what we know. And again, sometimes someone's going to tell us something and we need to look at their projections of what could possibly happen. That's part of the solution. But even then, we have to realize that things could change, miracles could happen. We can come up with a solution that no one could even imagine. That's how life is. And so we can't let uncertainty always be a place of negativity and doom. It's going to be too hard to live this life. And I really believe we're not going to be able to create the world that we want to see if we're always looking at it from a place of negativity and fear and worry. And the reason I bring this up today is I want to try to give you some tools that could help you stay present and be less worried about what's going to happen tomorrow and be more hopeful. And the first thing you do is you ask yourself, am I observing or am I evaluating? And what I mean by observing, is this a fact that I know to be true? And if you don't know it to be true, then you can decide to pause and wait. And if you know it to be true, watch where your mind goes. For instance, if you don't get a job that you really wanted, well, you observe the situation, you know you didn't get the job, but then you start saying, this is really bad. Things are never going to work out. I'm never going to be able to make a living. Things are never going to get better. You are evaluating what that fact means. And the truth is, you don't really know. You don't know if that job was best. And you don't know if you're not going to get another opportunity. And most likely you will find your way. And sometimes that's enough for people. But for me, what I like to do, and I know I've gone over this so many times, is sometimes I need to do the practice of maybe. So what you do is you would list your biggest fear. I didn't get the job and things are bad. I didn't get the job and I'm not going to get another job. And you ask yourself, are you absolutely certain that thought's true? And we just went over it. No, you're not absolutely certain that thought is true, that fear is true, that negativity is true. And what else is there? And that's when maybe comes in. What maybe does, it allows you to look at the future and question your fears, question your worries. Sure, bad things could happen, but you don't know. Good things can happen too, new things, creative things. So you just start listing maybe statements to alleviate that pain within you, that suffering within you, that rigidness in you that believes you're so certain that things can't get better. And you could start really simple. Maybe things are good. Maybe I could accept this and still be okay. Maybe I could find another job. Maybe I need to send my resume here or there. Maybe I need to wait. And as you say these maybe statements, you realize that you were just projecting what this fact meant for the future. And that's when we get ourselves in trouble. And that's when we get overly negative, and that's when we feel hopeless. So for me, sometimes I could just catch myself. I ask myself, am I observing or evaluating? And other times I need those maybe statements. And this morning I did that. I did the maybe practice this morning when I was reading the news. And all it did, it just unhooked me from the doom that everybody was predicting, because nobody truly knows what's going to happen next. And I always say, thank goodness. And we know this for ourselves. We know there have been times in our lives when we were so sure something was bad, something so unexpected, and it moved us in another direction. But for some reason, we forget that, and we feel so stuck when something happens in the moment that we don't like. And even if something bad happened, we even can make something good from that. Life always has this element of changing. It always has this element of maybe. But if we're demanding in this moment to know what the future is going to be like, if we're demanding for that certainty, fear and worry are going to start coming in if you don't like what's happening today. And we constantly have to remember this, because there's so much negativity out there today. There are so many things that are happening in the world that could almost take our breath away. But we have to believe in change, and we have to believe in hope. And maybe gives us that. And all it does, it just reminds us that no one knows what's going to happen next. And if we don't like what's happening today, uncertainty is our best friend, because that's where life's going to change. And that's where we could do something today to make it different. But if we're so busy being bogged down by the negativity and feeling so low and feeling so hopeless, we're not going to make that change. In order to make change, we need to be open. We need to believe that the future can be different. We need to believe in the maybe. So after I did the maybe practice this morning, I just kind of snapped out of it and I went on with my day. Still in the back of my mind, what can I do? How can I make things better? And it's not that I didn't observe what was happening. It's not that it didn't make me sad in this moment. But there's a difference between being sad in the moment for what truly is happening than what you're projecting out into the future what will be. So just because you're hopeful for the future doesn't mean you're in denial of what's happening in the moment. You're just choosing a different lens, a different perspective, and a more hopeful perspective, which will more likely elevate the situation and elevate your thoughts and your feelings and allow you to carry on and do what you need to do in your life. Every day has possibilities, and the future has possibilities, but we need to stay on the playing field of life. And we do that when we believe that uncertainty is something that's our ally. So whatever situation you find yourself in today, ask yourself, are you observing? Are you evaluating? And if you need those maybe statements, use them. You could do the whole entire practice or just use certain mantras. Maybe everything's going to be okay. Maybe I could accept this and be okay. Maybe things are going to get better. Maybe I don't have the answer right now, and that's okay. Maybe this is a difficult situation, but it will change over time. Don't let the outside world get you down. Don't believe that things can't change, because then you're going to close down, and then life is going to get too hard if things are not going your way. You have what it takes to get through whatever you're experiencing today. So watch where your thoughts go. Again, it's okay to feel what the moment is really giving you, but be very clear where your mind is going when you think about the future, when so much is possible for all of our lives. And remember that maybe the best is yet to come. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you could email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my books, The Gift of Maybe or Year Without Men, they're available at all major bookstores and online retailers. And if you like this podcast, you could subscribe and leave a comment.